Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Country Then and Now. I'm Casey Gibbs. We are joined today by somebody who is a legend in the music industry, in country music, Americana, and Americana music. New album out right now for the Black Sheep, and new single, Devil by a Different Name. We'll play that in a minute. Welcome, Lacey J. Dalton, to the show. How are you, Lacey?
I couldn't be better, Casey. Thank you. It's nice to see you. It's nice to be on your show.
Good,
I want
good.
to wish you every good thing for your show, this
I
podcast.
appreciate,
I hope
I
it just
appreciate it. Good.
explodes and is wonderful for you.
I appreciate it. Good to talk to you again. We did an interview a few months ago for True Country Music News, which is the newspaper I write for. So it's good to catch up again. We were talking about some stuff you got going on right now, right before we went on the air. You got a little excitement going on right now.
Well, it's not very exciting now, but we were told to evacuate our house because there was a gigantic fire here between Reno and Virginia City, where I live, and Incline. I think I told you that Reno and Carson City sit in a big, deep valley called the Truckee Meadows.
Hmm.
And on the western side, there's the Sierra Mountains. On the eastern side are the Virginia Range Mountains, where Virginia City is. And I live up in that smaller mountain range. And that fire was down in the valley. And it was burning, and they could not contain it. And it was not contained at all for 4 days, and they lost 12 houses. And
Wow.
it started to the winds came up, and we didn't know if it was going to come up our way, which it would have taken only a couple of hours, but instead it went up toward Tahoe, and it kind of went to an area that didn't really have a lot of houses. It was mostly forest, but it did cross over the Mount Rose Highway, which goes up to Incline from the valley by Reno and up to the ski areas. And it did burn 12 houses there. And I was talking to one guy at the post office. They had 5 minutes to get out of their home. And those are
Jeez.
$3 million homes. Those are not little places. Those are big old places, and it's got to hurt. And I don't know what's going to happen to our insurance out here because insurance companies are backing out of fire areas. Like rats leaving sinking ships. So
Right.
we got all that to look forward to. But I took a lot of stuff out of the house, and I'm having to move a lot of stuff back in. I can't believe how much I got out. I could have lived happily for the rest of my life with only that stuff, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing how when stuff happens, what means something and what don't. So, and somebody asked me one time. They said if you could live anywhere because of weather, just weather alone, not cost of living or job opportunities or anything like that, where would it be? And I said Florida, and they said, "Are you crazy? Why?" And I said, "Well, think about this process of elimination. California, you have mudslides and wildfires. Here, you got tornado alley. Up north, you got 40-degree below temperatures in the dead of winter." I said, in Florida, you got hurricanes. And they said, exactly. Why would you want to do that? I said, because you got 5 days to get out of Florida. You got 5 minutes to take cover in a hurricane, tornado, and you got a moment's notice to escape a wildfire. So I can have all my stuff packed and going in 5 days.
Well, not to mention earthquakes, which we do have some here in Nevada. But
Yeah.
when I lived in California, I was in a couple of the really big earthquakes. And
We started having those here the last few years, but it's all because of all the drilling that goes on, the oil drilling and everything that goes on here.
do you think that's what it is? Because I think the
Gotta be.
plates are moving anyway. I think the big plates under the country are moving anyhow.
Maybe.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think the drilling probably doesn't help. But we
Yeah,
do
I was
need
gonna
the
say it
oil.
probably encourages a little bit, so
Well, what's great is we are actually producing we're one of the most oil producing countries in the world. People don't know that. We
mhm,
make we drill a lot of oil here.
yeah, we do. Well, let's talk about the new album, came out last month, uh,
August the 9th.
August 9th for the
Yeah.
Black Sheep.
It was a project that I wanted to do for a long time, Casey. They're the kind of songs that you don't want to die with those songs still inside you. There were things I wanted to say to people, things I felt like I needed to say to people. Um, I've always been trying to communicate. My music has always been sort of more of a calling for me than anything because there's a certain magic that happens when you're communicating with people from the stage, and they're sending energy back to you and so on, and you can say things to people and remind people, and remind yourself of the ways that we maybe ought to behave in this world, which we are absolutely not at this point. And that was the reason. Devil by a Different Name, which was the first single, was actually the third song that I wrote for the Black Sheep. And that song talks about how divided we are. And as long as we're divided, divided we fall. That's a rule that never changes.
Absolutely.
We have got to somehow learn to do what we used to be able to do, particularly politically and spiritually. We have to learn to build bridges. Mm-hmm. And listen to each other, hear what people are saying, actually listen. And we're not really so far apart. There are issues, I believe, that human beings will never be able to agree on. There are certain things that we can never, ever, ever agree on because of spiritual beliefs,
right?
Usually, or political beliefs, or whatever you think. But the bottom line is we have to learn to talk to each other, listen to each other, and learn how to agree to disagree and mind our own business. We have to learn how to talk to each other, hear what each other's saying, take the good that we can take from each other, and somehow meet in the middle. And we've got to do that, because in this country, and great countries in the world, this is a great country, because we have learned how to come to the middle and make compromises, but we're forgetting that. And we want to fight each other and hate each other. Well, that's what the whole Black Sheep project is about. It's about, do you remember there was this long-haired rebel teacher from over in the Middle East somewhere where we're having all that trouble, long time ago, long-haired rebel teacher. And he came from a little place called Bethlehem. And he had a very simple teaching. He said, love God with all your heart, mind, and spirit. Love yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. And he said, that's the whole of the law. Mm-hmm. And all the other laws of life are based upon it.
Yep.
And this rebel teacher from Bethlehem said, and that is what I came to teach. That's really all you have to know. The golden rule. Treat other people the way you would want to be treated. And we're not doing that. We are not walking our talk, particularly those of us who say we're Christians. None of us do it very well. We all want to hate. There's a song on this project called Everybody Loves to Hate. And it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but it's actually true. I mean, we've been here on this planet.
True, yeah.
Well, we've been here for like thousands of years, and we still don't know how to get along with each other. I don't think the aliens are going to let us off this planet till we learn how to behave ourselves.
Right.
You guys are stuck. We're not. Yep. Don't even let them off that ball.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, let's go ahead and play the Devil by a Different Name.
Thank you, Casey.
Yeah.
Call me whiskey, call me wine, call me cocaine or codeine, call me power, call me fame. I'm just the devil by a different name, boys, devil by a different name. Call me left wing, call me right, we are split right down the middle in this fight. Divided we fall, that rule don't change. It's just the devil by a different name, boys, devil by a different name. This wicked world is dancing with the devil in the wild and crazy hurdy-gurdy dance. Caught up in the frenzy and the revel, there's a dreadful price to pay for this romance. Call me imam, call me priest. We are brothers separated by belief. For the loveless faith is a ball and chain. It's just the devil by a different name, boys, devil by a different name. Call me brown skin, call me white. It's not the color of our skin that makes us right. When somebody tells you we're not the same, that's just the devil by a different name, boys. Devil by a different name. There's a still small voice that whispers deep inside us. Listen close and you might hear it say, there's a light still out here shining in the darkness. It'll be here when you find you've lost your way. So call me gay, boys. Call me straight. Must we stare across this chasm filled with hate? If they say we're wrong, we should be ashamed. That's just the devil by a different name, boys. Devil by a different name. This wicked world is dancing with the devil in the wild and crazy hurdy-gurdy dance. Caught up in the frenzy and the revel, there's a dreadful price to pay for this romance. Yes, I am a woman, I am strong. I've been told that I am less than for so long. Eve ate an apple, they say we're to blame. That's just the devil by a different name, boys. Devil by a different name, boys. Devil by a different name.
Off of the new album for the Black Sheep, Devil by a Different Name, Lacey J. Dalton on Country Then and Now. I'm Casey Gibbs. You said that was the first single off the album?
It was the third song that I wrote for the project, but we used it as the first single. Because
Okay.
it kind of set a sort of a mood for the rest of the record.
Right.
And I speak to a lot of things like that on this record. I used some things that I had on older projects that I particularly liked. There are a couple of them on there that are two of my favorites. One of them is called Standing Knee Deep in the River and Die of Thirst. And another one that I actually wrote for DreamWorks is called Boundless Skies. And they're quite different from the newer things that I've written on the first 6 songs on the CD are brand new, and the other stuff is a little older.
Okay. How much, when you were doing a lot of the stuff back in the 80s, how much of the material back in the 70s and 80s did you write, and how much of that was wrote by other writers?
Well, most of the hits I either wrote or co-wrote.
Okay.
You know, and the first hit I ever had was really magical because I wrote it with my longest friend. We've been friends since we were 7 years old. We're still best friends after all these years. We got together. She was recovering from a divorce at my house, and I went downstairs and put on a pot of coffee, and I started to write this song, and she was still up in the loft. And I remember going into the other room and taking a broom handle and pounding on the bottom of the loft, saying, "Mary, get up and have some coffee with me. You're in the perfect place in your life to write this song with me." And so we wrote this song together, me and my longest friend, my best friend since I was 7 years old. And it was the song that got me a record deal. We went to LA and made a demo, and we had offers from every single record company in Nashville just on that one song. And even the Rolling Stones wanted to sign me to their record company. I often wondered what would have happened to me if Mick Jagger had signed me to that.
How would it have been different?
Well, I don't know. I can't even imagine. But I don't think I was ready for that at that time. I was still trying to find who I really was.
Right.
I grew up in a country music family, but when I got to a certain age, I started to. Oh, that song, by the way, was called "Crazy Blue Eyes," and it was on permanent rotation in most radio stations for about 20 years. It was a very long-lasting kind of a hit. And then I wrote "Hillbilly Girl with the Blues," and that was probably the biggest song I ever had, not necessarily in the United States, but all over the world. And we then began to write with Billy Sherrill's nephew, Mark, and we wrote Billy wanted me to write pop songs. Well, I'm not crazy about pop music. I'm just not. Most of it, if some of them are great, "The Wind Beneath My Wings" or "Up Where We Belong," or there are songs that I love that are pop, but it's not my favorite kind of music. I like earthier stuff. I
Yeah.
like Christopherson and Guy Clark and the Outlaws.
Right.
And that's what brought me back to country music, because when I became of age and started writing my own music, even though my family was country music folk, I began to listen to Bob Dylan and Joan Baez, and I listened to Janis Joplin and the Jefferson Airplane and the Jefferson Starship and a lot of West Coast bands. I had gone out to California to be a flower child, which is probably one of the more boring times of my life. One thing I will tell you, free love my butt. Okay. I never worked so hard in all my life. But anyway, I had my flower child adventure, and I did learn some wonderful things from that experience. But it did change my music being on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And when I was signed to CBS Records in 1979, they signed me as an outlaw artist, and that was a really good thing for me, because the thing that brought me back to country music and made me love it were the Outlaws, Waylon and Willie and the boys, and Christopherson and Guy Clark and those folk. And I loved that music, and it's still my favorite country music of all. The Highwaymen and Seven Spanish Angels and Pancho and Lefty and those songs. And I'm going to do my next project that I'm going to do will be a songs of the New West, like that.
Oh,
like
wow.
that, songs like Desperado.
Okay. When I think of your music, I never even thought of you back when Black Coffee and 16th Avenue and Hillbilly Girl with Blues, all that type of stuff was out. I never thought about Lacey J. Dalton as a outlaw artist like I did the Glazers and Christopherson and Willie and Waylon and Johnny and all that type of thing. I never put you in that equation. I don't know why.
Well, a lot of that music, Billy Sherrill, who was my first producer and a wonderful producer, really wanted me, because I was ancient when they signed me. I was 33 years old, and they'd never heard of signing anybody at that ancient age at that time. And I made a big deal about how ancient I was. And he wanted me to be safe. So he wanted me to get into pop and jazz. You can be 100,000 years old and do that music. Right. He was trying to be protective of me, but he did sign me as an outlaw because of the way I wrote. And that enabled me to do a lot of stuff that a lot of us girls didn't get to do, which is open shows for very long periods of time for the likes of Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard and Hank Williams Jr. And, the real outlaws. I even played David Allan Coe's wife in a movie called Take This Job and Shove It. And Casey.
I forgot about that.
That's outlaw.
I forgot about that.
I don't care who you are. David Allan Coe is outlaw.
Yeah.
And that music was the movie was great, and I had a couple songs in the movie. Crazy Blue Eyes was in there, and I wrote a song with Billy Graham, who was Glenn Campbell's band leader, and it was called Beer Drinking Christian.
Okay.
And Bobby Bear sang it, I think. It was
okay.
It was it was. I had so much fun writing those songs. Songwriting is really fun. Especially, I like co-writing, but I hate it when people say, "Well, you never wrote anything by yourself." Well, that's, first of all, that isn't true, and secondly, when I was first writing, I would, if anybody was even in the room and offered one word, I would give them half a song. I just always did that. Although many of my co-writers were really that. They wrote just as much of the song as I did. But the bottom line is, on this CD, I really tried to just write my own things. At least most of them are my own writing alone. And because I just wanted to say, okay, yes, I love to co-write. In fact, there's a fellow you probably know, Bobby Tomberlin, and I've been talking to him. I love his music, and I love the guy, and we're starting to write some stuff together. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'm going to do that very sparingly, because I don't want people to say, "She never wrote any of her own songs."
Right.
I think when you're a woman, they're harder on you about that stuff than if you're a guy.
Yeah,
There is maybe not, maybe I just think that, but
I
it
can't
seems,
do that. I don't know. I've never wrote a song, so I couldn't tell you.
well, I don't hear them saying about the guys. They don't say that about the
Well,
male
I mean, I
artists.
don't hear that as much about the females anymore as much as I used to either. So
Well, that's good,
I
but you
think
know what?
I think it's more receptive now.
We're still back at that point where we're only 1/10. 1 out of 10 songs is from a woman. We
Mhm.
were there and we got past it and it was great. And we had Shania Twain and now, well, I don't know how they can actually say that with Taylor Swift because she's the biggest thing in show
Yeah,
business. So, her 1 out of 10, she probably takes up, you know,
the two that come to mind as far as female songwriters that I think of is Matraca Berg
yes.
and Victoria Shaw.
Yep.
Those
Beautiful writers.
those are the two that come to mind for me. Let's what's the story behind Black Coffee? We're going to play that in a minute, so let's talk about that for a little bit.
That happened to me. I was in between record companies. I had just stopped recording for CBS Records because a new guy had taken over the record company and he would not let me off the label. I wanted to be off the label. He wouldn't let me off the label. And he said, I'm not going to let you off this label because I don't want to compete with you. And I said, well, I'll do one record for you. And so I did. But what he did to me, Ricky Skaggs was like the biggest thing on earth then, and very traditional country music. And the guy says to me, I want you to make a kind of rock pop album. And I thought, well, that ought to kill it. So I went down to Muscle Shoals with Walt Aldridge, and I made the best rock populist album that I think you could make. And the reviews were incredible from the New York Times and the Washington Post, and they were saying, why isn't this album being promoted? And I thought, well, you don't know what I know. You don't know. I want to get away from this guy as soon as I can. It took me years, but I finally called Jimmy Bowen over at Universal, and I said, Bowen, I am dying on the vine. And I said, I need somebody to buy this record contract. I had to pay off my first manager. It was almost $100,000. And I had to buy myself. He had to buy me away from CBS. So I went over to Bowen. And I finally did start recording again. But Bowen, by this time, he had a very, very strong case about taking all of the older artists, giving them wonderful budgets to make records, and pulling all the older artists back off the charts and allowing the younger artists like Garth Brooks speed up the charts and go up the charts, with us older artists having very nice, wonderful budgets for our records. If something hit, great, but not really. We just wanted to kind of keep them. They were the Ramada, the Remuda, or whatever they call the cowboys call the horses that they have spare horses all the time in a cattle drive. We were that. And I'll never forget telling Charlie Daniels, manager, I said, whatever you do, don't come here because they're not going to promote you. And he talked to me about a year later and said, I really should have listened to you. The first thing they did was try to take the sunglasses. Charlie had very, very sensitive eyes, and he wore sunglasses not because he was cool, but because his eyes hurt. And they tried to get him not to wear the cowboy hat and take the glasses. Well, Charlie wasn't going to have any of that. He was enough of an outlaw himself to tell them that wasn't going to be how it was, and he went on to be okay. But I stayed with Bowen through about 3 or 4 different little labels that he had, little boutique labels. And every time we would make a record, he would leave that label and take me with him to the next label, and that record never got heard. And that happened to me 4 times. And I finally went, I don't understand the music business. I am doing the best I can do. I'm trying every kind of music you can imagine to see if any of it will hit be able to stick on the wall. Yeah. And I finally, it just was futile. It was like having 4 miscarriages.
Wow.
And I just finally went, and there were a number of independent record companies that were interested in me. And I said, if this is what a big record company will do to you, what will a little tiny, not very well financed record company do to you? I'm done. I'm done. I'm going. So I came out west and I just started making my own music with my own record company and my own label and saying what I wanted to say. And that suits me. That suits me really well. I'm not rich anymore, but but you know what? I'm free.
Right.
And there's something to be said for that. I mean, when I'm not complaining because I can't do something I want to do, like record 19 songs or something,
Right.
I'm grateful that I am able to say whatever I want to say. And that's what I did on the Black Sheep. I have said exactly how I feel about things. It's a completely authentic and honest thing. Whether you're interested or not, I don't know. But this is what my soul wants to say to the rest of the world right now at this point. And
Gotcha.
that's what the Black Sheep is all about.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead. We've got a little bit of time. Let's play Black Coffee real quick. Let's go back.
Oh, you asked me about Black Coffee, and I digressed, which is what I do.
You're fine.
At this age, you're allowed to digress. Anyway, even Stevens and Hillary Cantor brought me this song, and it was so different for me. I said, this would be the perfect song for Rosanne Cash, and even I said, why don't you take it to her? It'd be perfect for her. And it'll probably be a huge hit because I was in a very deep valley, a very cold place after 4 records that nobody ever heard. It'd been years, probably 3-4 years since anybody had heard anything from me. In 1992, they insisted that I record it. And for the first 2 weeks, it outsold Madonna and Michael Bolton.
Wow.
And it could have gone, at that point, they could have pushed my career over into pop, but as Jimmy Bowen used to say, well, she's not cute enough and she's too old. I wish they could see me now. I wish they could see me. Anyway, Black Coffee from Even Stevens and Hillary Cantor. Great song. Loved doing it.
Good deal. Here it is on Country Then and Now.
Black coffee, blue morning, toast is burning and the rain keeps pouring. That feeling I'm losing you. Black coffee, green envy, jealous of the way that you used to love me. That feeling I'm losing you. I don't know if I can live without you. I don't know if I can understand you. Don't know if I can. Know if I can. I could only think of one good reason to make this crazy love affair worth leaving. You know that I would. You know that I would. Black coffee, red morning, no good news in the news this morning. Bad feeling, I'm losing you. I don't know if I can live without you. I don't know if I can understand it. Don't know if I can. Know if I can. If I could only think of one good reason to make this crazy love affair worth leaving. Oh, you know that I would. You know that I would. Black coffee, blue morning, toast is burning and the rain keeps pouring. Bad feeling, I'm losing you. I got this bad feeling, I'm losing you.
Black Coffee, Lacey J. Dalton on Country Then and Now. That was one of the top 10s, number ones for you, if I'm not mistaken. What, about 81, 82, somewhere?
92.
92? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, actually.
Was that on Universal with Bowen?
You believe it was. It was on something, one of the labels with Bowen. Capital Nashville or Universal. I can't remember which one of the four things it was on.
Well, let's talk about the song that people probably know you best for. We can't do this without at least hitting on 16th Avenue.
You know, I never get tired of singing that song. And about 2 Octobers ago, my partner Eddie Dale and I, my music partner, and I went back to the Grand Ole Opry and sang that song for the 40th anniversary of it. Mm-hmm. And it was so well received. I mean, people were so glad to hear it. And I found out that it had become an anthem for the songwriters.
Oh, yeah.
In Nashville. And I found out, I think it was from Bobby Tomberlin, that when the Nashville Songwriters Association has its meetings, it still opens its meetings with my version of that song.
Really?
And it's been re-recorded a number of times. And Tom Schuyler, the writer of it, has written it and written spoofs of it and written all kinds of stuff. There are extra verses. I mean, there's a lot going on with that song. That song has had more legs than any song I think I've ever done, and I'm so grateful that I got to be the one to sing it. And you know, it's just a really well written song, and I love the writer of the song. Tom Schuyler is one of the finest people I've ever known, and I remember listening to his vocal. Whenever I hear a good singer who is also a writer, I try to capture some of what their original vocal sounds like. And I did that on that song. I listened a lot to what Tom did, and then I just kind of went, okay, I'm going to do my version of what he did and try to bring to that song what he brought to it. He's a wonderful singer. He had, I think, 6 number 1s in a row with
SKO.
Yeah, SKO. Yeah.
Yeah, Stellar No Block Overstreet.
Yeah.
That song find you, or did you find it?
Well, I always thought that Even Stevens was the publisher of that song. And he's the one who wrote Black Coffee. And I always believed that it was Even who took that song to Billy Sherrill for me. Even said he didn't ever remember doing that. I don't know how it got to Billy Sherrill, but it got to my producer, whom I loved. He was such an amazing, beautiful soul.
Yeah.
I loved working with him. I mean, to have a first producer who was the greatest producer you could ever imagine. It was amazing. But I walked into his office one day and he said, nah, in his nasal voice, I said, "Oh, Lacey, I want to play a song I got this song for somebody." So he played it for me, and I said, "Well, you better save it for me because I sure love it." And that's how that song started. But in the midst of that song, the record company hierarchy was changing. And the new guy, who I didn't get along with at all, didn't like that song, didn't think it was worth a crap. But there was a promotions director who put his whole career on the line for me. He called up every major radio station in the United States and explained to them that this was 16th Avenue was in Nashville, and that this was a song about all the songwriters. And he actually did that. Even though he did it, his name was Jack Lehmeyer. And he really went to the wall for me because he believed in this song. And so did Billy Sherrill. And Billy was on his way out for a minute. He came back, and they paid him more to come back and run that record company probably ever paid anybody in their lives. But when the other guy, who could not tell a minor key from a major key, suddenly somehow disappeared, thank God. Yeah. But that song and that story of that song is very touching to me because it just has legs that go forever. You know, it's just a really great song. It's a story that we've all lived. So many of us have gone to Nashville. Very few of us ever really get the chance. When I think back on it, to have the chance to take that ride, even for a little while, that's pretty wonderful. And I've been able to make my living with music since I was about 18 years old. I mean, in the beginning, of course, I always had to work during the day and sing at night. But now that's what I do. It's what I love, and it's like I said, it's a calling. It's, you people say, "Are you going to retire?" And I, why would I? I like, if I lose my voice, any more than it already is how it is. I hope that I will have a sense to get off the stage. But
Right.
so far, my voice is holding up really well, and I'm also very grateful for that, because a lot of my friends are not able to sing anymore.
True. Well, let's go ahead and play 16th Avenue on Country
Well,
Then.
right, twist my arm.
All right. Let's play Dalton. Here you go.
From the corners of the country, from the cities and the farms, with years and years of living tucked up underneath their arms, they walk away from everything just to see a dream come true. So God bless the boys who make the noise on 16th Avenue. With $1 million spirit and an old flat top guitar, they drive to town with all they own in a $100 car. 'Cause one time someone told them about a friend of a friend they knew, who owns, a studio on 16th Avenue. Now some are born to money, they've never had to say survive, and others swing a 9-pound hammer just to stay alive. There's cowboys, drunks, and Christians, mostly white and black and blue. They've all dialed a phone, collect a home from 16th Avenue. Oh, but then one night in some empty room where no curtains ever hung, like a miracle, some golden words rolled off of someone's tongue. And after years of being nothing, they're all looking right at you. And then for a while you go in style on 16th Avenue. Oh, it looks so uneventful, so quiet and discreet. But a lot of lives were changed down on that little one-way street. They walk away from everything just to sing for me and you. So God bless the boys who make the noise on 16th Avenue. Hey, God bless all the girls who make the noise down on 16th Avenue. From the corners of the country, from the cities and the farms, with the years and years of living tucked up underneath their arms, walk away from everything just to sing for me and you.
16th Avenue with Lacey J. Dalton on Country Then and Now. I'm Casey Gibbs. That has to be probably one of the top 100 songs in country, as far as I'm concerned. When people think about country music, that's got to be on the list, because it's a standard in the industry now.
Well, I'm proud to have been the one to sing it. I'm so grateful.
It's funny to me how different songs find the right home, because I mean everybody's passed on songs that have become bigger hits for other artists, but when it hits, it hits.
Oh boy, what a wonderful one to have. Because I never get tired of singing it, because so many of us have just really lived that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people come to Nashville and they live in their car, they sleep in their car for a while, still to this day.
Yeah.
it's not an easy. It is. People think it's easy, and it's not really work, but it's a very demanding thing to have a career in country music or any kind of music.
Right.
And I have uh, a lot of sympathy for people who get, for instance, as big as some of the artists get, where they can't even go out in public without having a costume or being somehow disguised.
Hmm.
I think that is fame is lovely in some respects, but it's really it's hard. It's hard on people. It's hard on families, and it's hard when you are a lot of times the center of attention. Even your mate can become jealous of that.
Hmm.
It's difficult in ways that other things really aren't difficult, and there are a lot of pressures, and you don't always eat at the right times, and you don't always get the right stuff to eat, or you don't eat for 10 hours and still have to do a show. I can't tell you how many shows I've done on peanuts and coffee.
Right. You're probably not the only.
That may be what happened to this career when you think back on it.
Yeah.
It was the coffee and
It
peanuts.
was the coffee. It was the black coffee. We got a little bit of time left. I know that you have a foundation that you work with that you absolutely love talking about. So let's talk about Let 'em Run Foundation real quick.
Well, I'm pleased to tell you my secretary and treasurer is also my manager, and she is a wonderful person. She's here with me today.
Leslie. Yep.
Yes, Leslie Adams, and she's here with me today, and we really are excited about Let 'em Run, because what I've done really with Let 'em Run is I used to be kind of hands-on, boots on the ground in a lot of ways. And I realized that you really can't do that and do a career and sort of self-manage, which I had to do for a long time. You've got to pull back somehow. So what we do at Let 'em Run now for the wild horses is we find out who the mom and pop groups are, the little groups that don't have time to do the work that they do. And they do most of the work of rescuing and rehabilitating and rehoming horses. The small groups, the little mom and pop groups, are the ones that do more of that than the great big groups who are involved in legislation and changing things on a political scale for the wild horses and so on. So
Right.
we choose some of these smaller groups that don't really have as much time to raise money as the big groups, and we raise money for them, and that's what we do. And we just had a very successful concert. We do it with concerts, and we have a couple people on our board who have a wine cellar, and that's Rick and Gina. And Rick and Gina are a wonderful pair. He is a chef, and she is a wonderful host. And they have this wine cellar up at Lake Tahoe, and they'll do these fancy dinners, and we will raffle off those fancy dinners for $5,000 or $6,000. And we all go up, and I play music with my partner Dale Panay, and they make a wonderful dinner and wine and so on. And that's how we raise money to give to these smaller groups that really need the help. And we've been able to help thousands of horses, thousands of them. And years ago, I made a CD for the wild horses called Wild Horse Crossing. And I can't even begin to tell you how many thousands of dollars that project raised for the wild horses. Everything was donated. I wasn't the only artist on the project. Every artist on the project donated their publishing and their performances and everything. I had to get a little bit of help from someone to pay for the recording sessions.
Yep.
But it costs us now, it's been years since we made it. I'd like to do another one.
Is that still available? Can people find that?
Oh yeah. In fact, I'll send you one.
Okay.
It's got other artists on it. It's got the Comstock Cowboys are on there, and John Tyson is on there, and a great cowboy poet and songwriter who I admire immensely, Richard Aloyan, is on there.
Okay.
And some other groups. And there, Stephen Swinford, who helped produce the project, did a number of beautiful instrumental songs. And we let television shows and horse groups and stuff use that music without cost. so that they can use it behind their commercials or whatever they want to use it for. And it's been used on A&E and the Company of Horses. It's been used on Animal Planet. And a lot of other places that I'm not going to be able to remember right now. But it was a great project because it was a project of love. Nobody took anything to do. We had a wonderful person pay for the studio time, and the producers did it for free, Bean Souza and Stephen Swinford. And it just turned out, it's a very simple project. It's very old now. But some of the songs are songs that we still perform and love, and it still raises money for the wild horses.
If anybody wants to donate to the foundation, how can they do that?
Well, they can go to letemrun.org. That's LETEM apostrophe EM, right? No apostrophe? Oh, I'm so glad our treasurer is here. It's LETEMRUN, which there's a song that I wrote for the project called Let 'Em Run. And we named the foundation the Let 'Em Run Foundation, which was one of the poorest names that we could have ever come up with, because people are always saying to me, "What's that name of your foundation? Is that Let It Run?" And it always sounds to me like the commode. Yeah. The Let It Run Foundation. It's Let 'Em Run Foundation.org, and you can buy the CD there if you want to hear the CD, and all the money goes to the wild horses, except for last time I think we made them, it cost us $1.25 to make the CDs, and everything else goes right to the horse groups that need it. And that's what we do at Let 'Em Run, and that's what we intend to do probably for the rest of our lives.
Good deal. Yeah. And they can find all your tour dates, all your info and merch and everything at LaceyJDalton.org. Okay. All right.
Lacey doesn't have an E in it. It's just LACY.
Okay.
All right. People say, I can't find it. I go, well, it's probably because you're spelling it wrong.
Right.
Or I spelled it wrong in the first place. It's not my real name, you know.
Oh, really?
No, when I went to Billy Sherrill, he said, "You're an outlaw. You need a name that sounds like an outlaw. Jill Croston doesn't sound like an outlaw." Come back here with an outlaw name. That took weeks, and we fought, and it was horrible. But anyway, that's how I became Lacey J. Dalton.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you doing this. I know you got some other stuff you got to do today. Appreciate you taking the time.
Well, it's nice to talk to you again so soon, Casey, and I do wish you every success with your podcast, and it's been fun talking to you today, and I hope the weather stays good for you down there, because when it turns bad in Texas, it really turns bad.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it is bipolar down here, but today we're
nice. That's exactly right. I have never heard it put better. Texas has bipolar weather.
Yeah, wait 5 minutes, it'll change. So,
all right,
Lacey, I appreciate you. Take care, and we'll be talking to you.
We appreciate it. Thanks so much. You have a great day.
You too. Adios. Till next week. Take care. Love one another. We'll see you.